You took me down to memory lane of some of the top 10 tunes. Well, Hare Krishna, Krishna. We used to sing that on the way to Harinam, like a marching anthem, because we didn't know what we were going to get into today, who's going to be around the corner, what adventure for Krishna. And when I was in the civil rights movement, the whole tenor, the flavor of the movement changed when we got freedom songs. We started singing and marching and getting encouraged that way. So this would empower us and give us courage on the way to purify the atmosphere with the holy names of Krishna, with the strength of Nrsimhadev and the compassion of Radharani. Prabhupada changed when he was in Vrindavan from San Francisco and London and other places. You could see he really felt like he was at home. He would put his leg up, his knee up, and his hand behind his head. You know, you could tell he was really relaxed. Old friends like Krishnadas Babaji would come. This Babaji was an amazing Baba who knew when Prabhupada was coming without any electronics. And he was barred from seeing Prabhupada because somebody didn't know who he was. I just found out this today. I've been listening to memory tapes and also Jamuna's incredible book. And so when Prabhupada heard Krishnadas Babaji was there, he said, no, let him come immediately. And it was just the spiritual potency we needed, because on the day that I met him, Prabhupada was back in his element in Vrindavan. We had a lot of things to accomplish for Krishna that day. And I called Prabhupada the ringmaster of the circus, because there was a woman named Shamadevi, devotee, Brijbasi, who was our dear friend in London. We used to have long kirtans together. Her deities were held up in customs because they thought she was going to sell them as antiques. So she called Gurudas, please help me. And I went to the customs and explained that these are not antiques. This represents God just like you're representing the government. And so they released Radha and Krishna. One of her disciples had 7-foot-high Gaurnitai, which she traveled all over, even in England. And I saw her on the train, and I said, well, where's Gaurnitai? She's from Punjab. Oh, she's there in the next compartment. They had a whole first-class compartment with flowers. Well, this devotee would faint when we left each other. Vipralamba, actual Vipralamba, like in Vrindavan, and just relished the association. And we had long kirtans together she taught us the tune. Hare Krishna. I'll remember it later. So, she was our dear friend, and now she was in Vrindavan, and she wanted the same piece of land as we did, this Ramareti. And Mr. Sharaf, whose house we were in, was willing to give it to either one of us. He was favorable for both. She had an ashram right down the street, a goshala, an auditorium. She really didn't need it, but she wanted it. And so, by life's strange tricks, we were so close, and she would also display Vipralamba, and here's coming up upon my going back to London from Leicester, and now, by association, she's my enemy. Because I'm hanging out with this group and she's hanging out, and this is what happens all the time. It was very it was confusing to me because she changed so abruptly. At the same day, Gaurachand Goswami and Madan Mahan Goswami from the Radha Damodar temple are also coming to Mr. Shar's house to finalize the Radha Damodar rooms of Prabhupada. We wanted to get them for life. In what's it called in all life, eternity.
In perpetuity.
Thank you. Well, I'll give you an idea. Some of you may have heard this story, but when we were established in Vrindavan, well, I lived in the Radha Damodar rooms, in Prabhupada's rooms, and that was really a magic experience, and I wrote about it in here called my Guru's Bhajan Kutir, because I'd be in the same kitchen that Prabhupada was in, and Rupa Goswami Samadhi is right there, and then his where he slept, and all the days paying limit posters, and his spectacles, and his account book. He's alone, and he's saying 25 anna for rice. Real, meticulous accounting. Put it down. So immediately was his adage. So some of you have heard this story, but I have to show you the character of the Saivite. Saivite is the family that carries on the Goswami duties in the temple. So his family was in charge of Radha Damodar temple, along with this other Goswami, Madan Mahan Goswami. They were right across the courtyard from one another, but they wouldn't talk to one another. So that's strange. But this also happens in spiritual and other circles. So, Prabhupada says, what do you think of Gaurachand Goswami, Gurudas ji? And I said, well, you know, he's a rascal, but he's a charming rascal. He really was. He was technically blind. He had thick glasses. His son Pancho would roll out of bed 10 minutes before the Mangal Arti, which was like about 8 and 7 in the morning or something. And he'd be going like this. And temple was run down, and I lived in the rooms, and I used to feed his grandson secretly. So Prabhupada says, yes, I think that too, that he's charming, and he's invited us to Prasadam, so we should go. So we go to Radha Damodar Temple. The Darshan Mandap is right there. They're resting. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's Samadhi is right there. Jiva Goswami, Radha Damodar, Rupa Goswami's Samadhi is right there. I mean, we're surrounded. We're enveloped in Krishna consciousness. Chintamani, every step is magic. You can feel it when you get there. At least I did. So, as you know, the sign of someone being in your family when you're invited to Prasadam is they'll sit and eat with you, even though the custom in India is to stand and watch. This industrialist thought he was so clever because he made very spicy aloo-dum, spicy, uncooked chapatis, and lots of water. So people ate that, drank water, and the chapatis would blow up in their stomach, and then he would come with the pakoras and the samosas, you know. He thought he was so clever. And he told me what he did. And then they come like, oh no, we're not hungry. Oh, okay. Then him and his wife sit in pieces. And I told Prabhupada that, and Prabhupada does a Bengali proverb which says, if you make a dog a king, and then throw the king an old shoe, the king will run off the throne and bite it. Meaning, if someone's nature is that way, they'll still have that nature, instead of really wanting the guests to be satisfied fully. I mean, you know, there's all sorts of types. I caught a man watering down the buffalo milk with a tube in his turban. And putting newspaper on the top to make it look like skin, you know. Anyway, so back to Gurudas Goswami, we were sitting there, and it's all of Prabhupada's favorite preparations. It's shukta, like bitter melon and everything cooked in mustard oil and stuffed portals that you can only get in Bengal. And misty doi, you can only get it in Bengal, and, well, we got it in Vrindavan, but, I mean, they were specifically Bengali dishes that Prabhupada loved. And so Prabhupada's there, and I'm here, and Dr. Kapoor's there, and Samerson is there. And when Prabhupada, he really honored Prasadam. You know, actually, I've been very nice and I've been talking, but really the best way is to just not talk when you're honoring Prasadam. Prabhupada would only do it if he had to. He really honored Prasadam. But when he really honored Prasadam, like this time, he put his hand down like this, so he can eat more easily. And suddenly I see half of a stuffed portal going on my plate that he bit, that he had eaten. And I think I levitated off the ground like a little puppy. It was like, mama. And so he started throwing stuff on my plate because he liked my reaction, you know, and I liked my reaction. And Dr. Kapoor was honoring Samerson. Well, so Gaurachan finishes his prasadam, and he smoked bidis, these like leaf cigarettes. And for some reason, people smoke after they eat. They do that. So he went behind the door there, the veranda's there, he went behind the door to smoke his BB. But the thing is, he was blind, he was really not behind the door, he was in front of the door. And so he was like this, and there's smoke billowing everywhere. And I'm holding in my laughter. I'm having to really be a yogi to not burst out laughing. And I go like this to Prabhupada, and he bursts out laughing. It's like a Charlie Chaplin movie. Prabhupada knew silent movies. So I laughed, Dr. Kapoor laughs, and Sam Shinda laughs, and then Gurchan stashes his BD and becomes a great devotee. Go Paul! Go So this is who we had to deal with. And Madan Mohan was completely different, and they weren't talking. And I had to deal with these guys, these Savites, to get the rooms, and I'd go to Mathura, and they couldn't find the file, and I said, are you sitting on it? Oh yes, here it is. And they're outside, doing all this law stuff. Things are held down by rocks, and their suits are frayed. I mean, it's a surrealistic scene to get legal stuff down. It's all outside with rocks, right? Well, you know, if anybody knows. So, this is the highest transcendental pleasure, because I meet Prabhupada at the airport, and it's only Sam Shunda and him, and we have a car. And I was in Vrindavan, Prabhupada sent me there, and I had a chance to do Ban Bihar. I had something to do. I was trying to get a palace from the king, but I had a chance to actually go in the curtain. The one who took me was the brahmachari from my new enemy, Shama Devi. I went and stayed with her the first day I was sent to Vrindavan, because she at that point was my friend, and there was a room on the road, and it was a full moon night, and there was a man in a cart pulled by a bull, two bulls, and he's lying up looking at the moon singing bhajans. This is wafting in my window, and 24 hours of kirtan wafting across. And peacocks. I couldn't sleep at all. And so the next morning I go on the Parikrama, and I had to swoon. I mean, this is where summertime goes for me. And it was nice because I could just Ban Bihar, do it. So she was giving me shelter. The thing with the king, the palace didn't work out, so we had to go and now do what we're doing to get this Raman Reti land. There was a yes and no slip of paper, Radharani, and Radharani gave us the yes, which meant we had the land. And so now Shama Devi was contesting that we should have the land, and she brought a member of parliament and the policeman. And Krishna Das Babaji shows up. And all he did mostly was laugh and chant. He talked sometimes, but Prabhupada, he just loved each other. I mean, really. He was so unassuming. So Prabhupada said, put that person in this room, put that person in this room, put that person, because I couldn't put Madan Mohan with Gaurachan. And Shama Devi's there with her cops and the member of parliament, put them in this room. And Sam Shunda is typing all these legal things, and Prabhupada's still reading. And so we got all of it done that night, that day. And then we had the wedding of Yadavara and Vishaka, and I was the facilitator. So Prabhupada, like I said, he had after all of that, we got us situated, and Prabhupada was very, very comfortable in Vrindavan. And then we all went to the Jamuna to bathe, and Prabhupada wasn't feeling so well that day, but he saw all his children bathing in the water, and also the women, devotees were able to bathe too. They weren't sure how to do it because they saw Indian women doing it, but they had their saris, but they said, we're not going to stop either. And they went in, and they were up to their necks. It was really cool. And they were all happy. And Prabhupada saw this, and then he couldn't stay out of the water. Oh, I've got to come in Tucson. Mm-hmm. But he had this, it was very interesting, where he would become, I don't know how to say it, detached, or he told me that Krishna was riding the Krishna book on his shoulder. I'd peek in his room and he'd be talking to Krishna. What else did I just think of that he did in Vrindavan that was demonstrating that he would say that I didn't do this. I've been empowered by Krishna. Sometimes he would look at it. Why is his hand so old? Be detached. But we would be sitting in the room, and like I'm talking about the magic today, that we have harmoniums and seats and lamps and our family, because Prabhupada came, and it's still going on 40 some odd years, and it's comfortable, and we're singing those songs, and all of you are still doing it. And so Prabhupada also, sometimes he would marvel, like, how did all of this happen? He told me he didn't expect all of this when he came. He thought he would find a few people to chant with. You know, that's what his expectation. And then it happened more and more. And then he became from Swamiji to Acharya and general. And he always thought big and impossible. He sends me in Delhi. He says, there are so many American disciples here. Go to your ambassador and ask him for a free house for the American devotees. Do I look that thirsty?
I thought it'd be safe and sound.
No, I'm just joking. No, I was telling you in the Ukraine, they bring me food all the time, and I was a little bit bigger, and I say, do I look hungry? And then 15 minutes later they say, oh, Gurudas made joke, ha ha ha. So what was I talking about, Prabhupada, in India? What was?
Go to Delhi
No.
to ask the ambassador.
Oh yeah,
for
thank
the
you.
house.
Thank you so much. And so, not only that, but it was Sunday. I mean, I had a really good relationship with Ambassador Keating, who loved Prabhupada. He could sense his greatness. And Prabhupada's teaching him, you're not this body. He had the same striped coat on when I met him before. I thought, this ambassador should be able to afford more than one suit. But I challenged my stepmother, so, okay. At any rate, Prabhupada said, I don't call you Mr. Striped Suit, and you don't call me Mr. Orange Robe. He was showing them Prabhupada. And he was so charmed with Prabhupada. Well, we softened them up because we brought Yadavar and Dinanath. Yadavar and Tejas, both Peace Corps. Dinanath was the Navy. So I go to the ambassador's house, but Ambassador Keating wrote letters and he was enabling us to get tons of food. He was really a good friend to us. And I kept in touch with him. Nice man. And all the ambassadors were having their photograph taken on the front of the American embassy in Delhi. So he was so charmed with Prabhupada that the Swiss ambassador came in and said, "Please, Ambassador Keating, the other ambassadors are waiting for you." And he was taken with Prabhupada. Prabhupada was telling him, I don't drink with my elbow, and all these analogies, and he was enamored. And so then another secretary of a country would come in, and as each secretary, it got kind of escalated. Finally, it was China and Russia. So he said, I have to go. So I go to the ambassador's house, and I knock on the door, and a woman opens, and her hair goes like this, and her eyes are red, and "What are you doing?" And she sees my robes, and I guess she didn't like white skin in robes. I don't know what enraged her, but she said, "Get out of here." She slams the door. So I went to the driveway where the cars come in, and I sat down and chanted, and the car came in, and the ambassador was there, and in the ambassador car, and they all looked like Kennedy. They had their hair, and they did. And he was a nice man. He said, he stops the car. "Why are you in the driveway?" "Well, I wanted to talk to you, but your wife threw me out." So he says, "Come back there." He had his man cave way back in his budget could just get away from it all, way back in the backyard, far away from the house. And he apologized for her, and I said, "Well, you have to live with it." I think I thought that. I don't think I said it, but so Prabhupada's, I say, there's many American disciples of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami in Delhi, and he was wondering if you could give us a house to live in, or an apartment. Well, he was a nice guy, but I see the machinations of his mind. He's going, "My God." He said, "I'm sorry, I'm not a real estate agent. I don't have the power." So I said, "Well, my guru's plan B is that we'll pay for a house in any currency of the world. You want yen, you want pesos, you want drachma, you want lira." So Prabhupada would say that sometimes, that he was also enamored with everything that happened, how Krishna empowered him and subsequently empowered us. So there's a nuance between being not the doer and being the doer sometimes. And so if we do tune into Krishna by the Hare Krishna mantra radio station and everything else, this empowerment happens. You can see it because of impossible things happening sometimes. like meeting the Gurudas, for instance. And all the things that were happening to Prabhupada, that then he could say, well, have 6 buses and distribute books this way, and well, let's do big books, and, you know, all the manifestations that all of you were doing in great austerity, and I think the books more than anything have really changed people. George Harrison's songs have brought a lot of people. Prashadam has, Kirtan. But, I mean, Prabhupada really loved, his guru wanted that, the big Mridanga. And it feels good to write books and then have them manifest. It really did. And Prabhupada, each one, he was so gleeful because he knew that, he said, even if people just touched the book, Chintami Prakasari. But you see, we have to realize that he's a very righteous gentleman, and he didn't do our barbaric things. He said that he was putting the culture of India together, the culture of East with the dynamics of the West. So then we found out that some people were doing things to get people to take books by trickery. But I was in India, you see, we were just, but I heard this, and then I was in an airport and I saw some books in the garbage, and I picked it out, and I was on the way to India, and Prabhupada was there, and I told him that some people are doing that. They're just tricking people, and they're only spending a little time with people, you know. And I always talk to people so when they'd want to read it. And then the other aspect was somebody said, oh, I don't read the books, I just sell them, which was like real mercenary. When Prabhupada heard that, he said, what's the point? Like I was in Vrindavan, and all the sannyasis wanted me to go preaching with them around India. And I said, Prabhupada, I love Vrindavan here. I don't want to leave. This is about my 4th year or so. I love to preach, but I don't want to leave Vrindavan. What should I do? He said, preach to the devotees. Boom. Don't take devotees for granted. Help each other. Preach nicely. And I was, you know, I was in charge, so that gave me the impetus. He told me what to do. So the same way, we want to keep this integrity internally. And so when he found out, he categorically banned it across the board. No, we can't use trickery to distribute books. Same thing with devotees. He said, it's beautiful sitting with him because he would just have a little topic and it was like had a beginning, middle, and end. Lucid, cogent, and wise. He said, we don't want to cajole people to become devotees. Cajole, you know what it means? It means charm and trick and the same idea. They must make the choice in a strong manner. Then they will go away. If we trick them, they'll go away. Something easily learned is easily forgotten. Something hard, learned hard, is hard to forget. A little adage. So what he's teaching me all the time is do it purely, do it right, don't lie, don't cheat. As Jamuna said, if you live it, you can give it. which is what a beautiful definition of Bhakti Yoga. So, in India, it was also different because he was feeling good, but he wanted to show the people of India that you really do have a good culture. And he wanted to bring to them especially the personalist aspect of the Bhagavad Gita, which was really important because they were not doing it. And he knew this. And so he brought us dancing white elephants. He teased us. But we did make a great splash in India, too. You know, people would just see us as Vaishnavas. This man, Taran Kanti Ghosh, he was another charming rascal. But he was in the family of the newspaper in Calcutta, and he was the Minister of Health and Tourism. And he carried a small Chaitanya with him. And he says, I want to establish a Disneyland. So my Scorpio side came out, and I said, what? You want to glorify Mickey Mouse when you're carrying Chaitanya, so why not have a Lord Chaitanya theme park? Which, by the way, is part of that whole retirement village. I forgot to say that. There's a theme park of Radha Krishna, Rama, and Lord Chaitanya. You're sort of doing it with the fountains, and explaining who Ganesh is. It's like that idea, but a little bit more elaborate. Okay. So in India, also, he wanted the cream de la creme to come. And how many people heard that story about President Nasser? Should I tell it again? It's a really good story. It shows Chaitra Guru going into your heart. Is there a time limit?
Not as far as I know.
Okay. Till tomorrow, okay.
You mean Nasser
What?
of Egypt?
What? Yes?
Oh, India, yeah.
Sorry?
Nasser of Egypt?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
This is how you should tune into Krishna, because Krishna will help you, and it's called Chaitra Guru in your heart. Well, we're going to India, and it's like this World War II two-propeller plane, like in Casablanca, and the cockpit is like, there's just a blanket. There's no door. And Giriraj is from Boston Temple, and he's all uptight about Maya, and he can't look out the window, and he can't look in. And inside, the people, actually there was a person carrying a whole coat, and people carrying hands and stuff like that. And somebody threw up in the aisle, and I said, yeah, well, there is Maya here. That's just to set the scene of this airplane. And we get to Egypt, and it's the day after Nasser was assassinated. So it's just like Kennedy or John Lennon, or everybody was in turmoil. They didn't know what to do. They were walking around like zombies. And the whole airport had big paintings of Nasser, mustache, black all over. This is actually there's a drawing of this pastime. Bhaktisiddhanta in Vrindavan did this. And remind me to tell one other pastime that he did, because it's another great story, okay? After this story. So, I had to make sure that all the baggage was taken care of, because the World War II plane in Egypt and India, and it was called Bosco Airlines. There was this chocolate syrup called Bosco, but it was B-A-S, but it was sort of like that. It was like hens and goats and shaking airplane. Everything was secure, the baggage, and going back, and I was the photographer, so I had a Super 8 camera, because I was taking it to India. And Gurudas decides to lead the devotees in Kirtan right there where the airplanes were on the tarmac. They're bouncing up and down. Now this is before 9/11 and all that, but nobody dances and sings by the airplanes ever before. You're supposed to go into the terminal. So the movie's there, and they're chanting and they're dancing. And then I see soldiers with red in their eyes and open bayonets racing towards the devotees, because they're like terrorists. Who are these people on the tarmac the day after? It could have been the people who assassinated the president. So the movie's like, and then suddenly you see my shoes, and then you see it kind of bouncing like that, and Chaitanya Guru enters my heart, and I get between the soldiers and the devotees, and I said, we're singing the praises of President Masao. They turned, put their guns up, and became our honor guard. Sing as long as you know. So, person does that. Okay, the other story that is a drawing of is, and I really can't glorify Jamuna enough as being a great devotee. I did it more in the second edition and in this book too. But she was really incredibly determined, and I mean, she really just loved Prabhupada and would do anything for Krishna and Prabhupada. Did. And had an incredible personality. So one of the things she did was she decided that Prabhupada wanted pomegranate juice. So if if you're making a cup of pomegranate juice, it takes some time and devotion. But this is how she would think, like the gopis for Krishna. What would please him? What would please him? And that's the mood of the gopis. He told me Krishna consciousness isn't always peace of mind, because we're thinking, how can we please? How can we please? Sometimes it is, but not always, because we have this mood of service and devotion. So she has the cup of pomegranate juice, and she hears around the corner, she says, she looks around, Prabhupada, were you talking to the monkeys? Yes, I was telling them to go away.
And it worked.
Yeah. No, once even, there was a butterfly in the room, and we went like that, and the butterfly went on the street. And the worm story. The way I wrote this book is I had all these stories and memories of Prabhupada, and they came spilling out. Again, it wasn't me, I was kind of an instrument, like he was writing the Krishna book. Well, here's the worm story, and then I filled it in later. So the worm story is we're on John Lennon's estate in the morning, and Prabhupada's the only one who's intelligent enough to wear Wellington boots. We all have our sneakers and we're wet, and it's sort of like a V with birds. And Prabhupada's up ahead, and there's a worm going for him, and I'm seeing it, and I'm thinking that worm's going to get crushed by Prabhupada's lotus feet. But perhaps it's sort of like the Jamuna Fest, when people fall under the wheels. It could be. And then from the past comes this, it's like the prime directive in Star Trek, where you don't mess with nature. And then I'm thinking, but wait, it's a living entity that I'm going to intercede. But who am I? And by this time, the worm is there, and Prabhupada's foot is there. And then I looked at the worm went on, and Prabhupada, and I didn't see any indentation in the ground. So many stories. I'm bringing you Prabhupada so you can get the flavor of the Swamiji, who was so delightful and so charming and so making us comfortable, but as strong as a lion and like the fire. Being near him, your standard had to be high. I'm not saying it was always hunky-dory or something. Being with him was great, but you really had to be conscious. But what I really liked is interacting with him, with guests and things like that, because we were a really good team. And the reason I think he liked me so much is because I didn't push my own agenda. I let him set the mood, whatever it is. So one last story. Some guests came during the war, the Pakistani war and Indian war. And they were blocking out the windows. Because that's when bombers would see at night, the lights, and they bombed. And Prabhupada didn't even bother. There were windows right there. And we were in a Dharamshala. And a committee of men came, 4 men came, and said, why are you not blocking out the windows? And Prabhupada said, you're not the controller. You can't even control your stomach ache, your toothache. And he said, but what if the bomb should come? And I was standing up because I was making sure they had forgotten. And Prabhupada was sitting down, and he looks up, and I see his arm. And they said, what if the bomb should come? And Prabhupada said, then I would see the bomb as Krishna. Any questions, comments?
He's pretty brave.
He was fearless, Abhay Chodan. Fearless, having taken shelter of Krishna's lotus feet. We sped on the freeway. We took him on the freeway for the first time and went 90 miles an hour and thinking, oh, what's he gonna... And then he says, can we do it again? And you never knew. We're going down the road, and you know how you need a car, a horn in India, bang, bang. You do the horn and people go off the road, otherwise they'll get run over, cows, people. The horn broke. Prabhupada says, bring me my tali and cane. So he leans out the window and goes, bong, 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 bong. And the cows and everybody went off the road. Then he handed it to Koyananda in the front seat. He laughed and said, they will think it's an American invention and try to imitate. Because he was putting together the culture of the East and the dynamics of the West like a magician. But he'd tease us. He'd say, why is your American bird symbol a buzzard? And I would really laugh. He would do it when I was there because that was one of his favorite jokes with me. Because I thought of the Americans with talents in places they were invited all over the world, the bazaar, you know. He would do that. He would tease sometimes.
Can you tell us a little bit about how the deities were made in Vrindavan for the temple?
We had to go, we laid out the plan with Prabhupada, and then we also made a really good deity room in the sense that we were trying to learn from any past mistakes or possible mistakes. So we made doors that were large enough to allow things in, whatever, hooks on the wall. Giant Theater, Janine and I did it. And also planned the kitchen. And so then Prabhupada said what temple we should base our Krishna Balaram temple on. It was part of Goku, actually there's New Shamashinda temple mostly, the Darshan Mandap, I know of that. I don't know if you've ever been there, but it's a pretty nice place. It's kind of off the beaten track and stuff.
Where's that?
New
Yes,
Shamashinda in Vrindavan. So Prabhupada showing this all, but then we had to go find a deity maker, which Jamuna and I found. But we had to go to different ones, and I mean, this took years, and these guys were passionate. Their whole roof was full of red peppers. And so there was a film of red peppers on everything they ate. And some of the godbrothers would joke, I don't know, this is not Krishna consciousness at all, but Jerry Lewis, the comedian, becomes a devotee and eats that prasada. Ah! Baby! Okay. I didn't do it. Choodles. So we went to different deity makers, but these guys were good, and it was really nice because you'd sleep in the deity, in the unfinished deity rooms. Jamuna and I, so there'd be Shiva and there'd be Radha and Krishna and so this is also special because it's Krishna and Balaram, and they had to fit. This is two. I mean, this was a real job, and it took years, but these guys were good. But it really took a long time, and when they came in, peacocks started peeling at night. So Bardraj went for the painting, and a really funny story, I told this the other night, that Madhavisa Maharaj becomes a sannyasi, but he really liked women in his heart. And he was very staunch. First week, sannyasi, he didn't want to be with women alone, or even be near them in the temple, or anything. I joke that he didn't even want to read about Radharani, but that's my joke. And so, what does our open-minded spiritual master do? He sends Madhavisa Maharaj with Jamuna to finalize these deities in Jaipur. And he's telling me the story. And so he says, I didn't want to be near a woman, and Prabhupada sent me with Jamuna to Jaipur, and when we were riding in the rickshaw, and his voice gets higher when he tells me this, when he told me the story. I spoke to him the night he died. Krishna told me to call him. Anyway, that's Jeju Guru. So he said the rickshaw is getting small and Jamuna was large, so I couldn't help rubbing up against her. That's a great story. And I tried to put my dunda between us. But he said after 2 days it didn't matter. The gender, you see, didn't matter because of her devotion. She was just there to do the devotion. And because she was so in doing it, she so happened to be Jamuna, the woman, but it was like two devotees that had to get the job done. So, that's a nice story. And
How did
another
they get the deities back from Jaipur to Vrindavan? It's a long way.
special trucks and with lots of protection. And then, and like I say, they put peacock's pillow when they came in. And then Prabhupada wanted a murti of himself, which isn't done usually before some, he told me the whole nuances. And what's really nice being in Vrindavan, he taught me the nuances of Brahma and Brahminical etiquette, not stepping over people, and even invite them to eat. And if they don't come, they still think we're barbarians rather than devotees. So all these nuances that you probably know about. So yeah, they came, and then Murti, he did 360-degree photos. So
Those same carvers did Prabhupada?
yeah, but you know what? We rejected one. It wasn't good enough. But you know, they were passionate, but we put their kids and their grandkids through college or whatever, including the Kutwala people there in Vrindavan. I got some of it back. I mean, they owe a lot. I told them when I was there last time, you owe a lot to my spiritual master. Because there were droves of devotees in their shop getting saris and kurtas made, and then way outside now Vrindavan expanded, and there's 1,000 Russian devotees there. And they cried when I told Prabhupada, when I spoke in Vrindavan, the Russian women devotees cried because I was explaining to them that on the spiritual platform, men and women are the same, and that how Prabhupada treated us like children, the women too, and not only that, he made sure we were all taken care of when we traveled with him, Kausalya, Jamuna especially. So this was the thing, and they were crying because apparently people were not continuing this behavior, I guess, but this is the thing I want to instill, that Prabhupada was really giving us high standards, and that's why sometimes it's challenging, but he gave us so many values. The devotees is in the mode of goodness, das anu das, what to speak of, we don't identify with the body as an important thing. And he would talk about it years later because it is so difficult to really do. So I'm going around trying to help show people how great their spiritual master is. And the present one too. So I support the present gurus if they're not misusing their power and trying to be kind to people. I know some of them are a little stuffy, and Bob told me the story of his first encounter, I met that guy. Actually, I've been meeting some of the present, is this being published, Aaron?
Absolutely.
Anyway, I've been meeting some of the present gurus, and a lot of them are really sincere. And the reason I support it is because I had so much association with Prabhupada, and that there's sometimes some things in the that aren't in the Shastras, modern questions, and so, but really they should not overlook Prabhupada. He's the one who really started it all, and if they do, that's not. It's a tricky question because we're all human and we're trying to become devotees. It's sort of a work in progress. When people get title, power, and money, it changes them sometimes. Yeah.
Is there anything else you could share that Madhavisha Prabhu told you?
Thank you. There's another great story, and I was going to tell that, and so you read my mind, so I think that's Chaitya Guru coming into your heart, because not only is it Madhavisa, but it's Jamuna. And I'm especially thinking of her because I'm telling you, that book is incredible, and it's done so nicely, and it's a lot of this. The first part is some of the same adventures we went on together. And I didn't read it, I've skimmed it, but so Madhavisa, now he's a new brahmachari. I met him on the road. I'm with Kamal Krishna. He's saying, first time I came here, I was with 2 blondes and a pocket full of money. And it was this commune, Morning Star Ranch, which was put in the name of God. The title of they won the court case by putting it in the title, it's an act of God, not us. Lou Gottlieb, an old folk singer, this commune. Madhavisa came, Rabani Nandan, Vishnu John Kamal. So Kamal's there, we're going back, and Madhavisa was on the way to Big Sur, and I had these pictures of Gopal Krishna, the one where the cow looks like the deer.
Mm-hmm.
So beautiful, and some people think it's a woman. It's a woman because it's so drawn to judge. It's so beautiful, really. So I gave Madhavisa, who had a shaved head but a beard, he was starting with, at any rate, I gave him a picture of Krishna, and he went overlooking the sea and he made an altar, and I said, offer your food to this Krishna. And he did, and I said, vegetarian food. And he did, and he became a devotee. He came to San Francisco. And Vishnu John came. So now he's a brahmachari, and it was very austere. Now I know a lot of you were, I'm sure, if you went out on Sankirtan and everything, you've done plenty of austerities, just as austere, if not more than we did. But it's not a comparison or race, but I'm just saying, it was very austere, and still maybe, and there was no movement in place. And so, sometimes, I remember in the beginning, people would compensate the simplicity and discipline, like they would buy watches or expensive pens. And they gave a watch to Prabhupada that was digital, that when you went like that, it tells time. And Prabhupada says, so now I need 2 hands to tell time? And then the pen craze. And I write about it in my book here because the African kings had a pen craze where, for status, they had a lion draped across them with a Schaefer's pen there. But there was no pen bottom. It was just for status. And life, right? So Madhavisa, they didn't have very much. So what was something that they really liked? And the weapon of Krishna consciousness, prasadam and kirtan. So we had a lot of people coming to San Francisco Temple, so much so that there would be people outside on the sidewalk. And so we put down long tarp, clean tarp, and people would sit there, sometimes 2, but we'd also have to feed people outside. So Madhavisa, Brother David, Uddhava, and Rupanuga, the brahmacharis would go in the front where the prasadam was. Jamuna and Malati just got a stove from Jerry Garcia to make chapatis. So we had a new stove. So now they would put everything in the front of the tarp. So Madhavisa and the other brahmacharis would go there and try to ascertain what was in the pots by smelling. And there was a term, lusting after prasadam. This is what Madhavisa, it reminded me. This is one of those jargons, blue bean or lusting after prasadam. So they're right in front, and Jamuna decides that she's going to make plates like this and just hand them out instead of people just coming. There were too many people. So she said, now hand these plates to the people outside first. So he had, and the brahmacharis had to hand all the plates to everybody else first. So the next week, he and Brother David and Rupanuga and Uddhava go outside in the street, but Jamuna decides she was going to feed the people up front first. So that's the story. I mean, it's not the most great story, but it shows the humor. And Prabhupada said humor is a sign of Krishna consciousness, and that's why there's so much humor in this, showing his humor in this book here, his compassion, his humor.
I have a question about that.
Yeah.
Can I ask you? It's described the Lord Nityananda was always laughing. I read this.
Yeah.
And but Prabhupada was also very, very grave.
Yeah.
So can you said, humor is a symptom of Krishna consciousness, but also Prabhupada was grave. Lord Nityananda was always laughing. So
Yeah, well, not only grave, but you don't even know the mind of the spiritual master. The way I saw it, one eye was grave and one eye was jolly. It seemed like that. But again, it depends on the time and circumstances. Like he would chastise me if I needed it, so it wasn't jolly at that point because I had to learn. So it really depended. First of all, he had to go through life like everybody else, so we have so many pictures of him smiling and this and that, and he wouldn't let a joke go by, but you know, it wasn't constant. He had to function and teach us and answer letters and meet people, but he had, if there was a joke, he wouldn't let it go by. Especially if there was someone who had a sense of humor like me. So, it really depended on what was going on. Just like you, it depends on what's going on. Sometimes you're taking care of business, sometimes you're talking nice to a student, sometimes you're kind of figuring out, let's see where this person's at first, you know, whatever.
Gurudas.
Yes. So I haven't seen you before.
Oh,
You have? I have?
I no. I haven't seen you. Did you arrive here a few days ago?
Yeah.
Are you going to be at the George Harrison Festival?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go there, yeah.
Are you a friend of George Harrison?
Yeah, I'm the guy, I'm the
Okay,
guy.
yeah.
Are you gonna go?
Oh, yeah, I'm gonna be there.
Great. Are you a student or?
I substitute teach sometimes. Occasionally.
Did you take the CBEST test?
No.
Well, I guess they don't call it that. Did you take a test to become substitute teacher?
Graduated from college. Basically.
And you took education?
No, I didn't take education. I took industrial management at Purdue.
My partner thinking of becoming a substitute teacher.
This is kind of, I should be asking about Krishna, instead I'm asking something else. I was just curious, the freedom fighter songs, were they made up songs, or were they gospel songs?
Yeah.
Well, it depends on the song. We Shall Overcome was a modern one, but Keep Your Eye on the Prize was a song to keep you determined. Keep your eye on the prize. Go on. Then there were satirical songs. Ain't gonna let no police dogs turn us round, turn us round. And so then there was this really horrendous sheriff. Ain't gonna let Bill Connor turn us round, so it being according to Will. So, but most of them were gospel spiritual ones.
Who are some of your favorite devotees that are still left and active in the movement?
Favorite devotees now?
Yeah, that are, like you're talking about some of the Swamis or some of the gurus and stuff.
Well, first of all, everybody in this room.
Swami or not.
No, I think I'm one of the few people who can say they're friends with all devotees. I like devotees, but I get what you're
Maybe
saying.
admire more or...
Well, I really love Radhanath, as I said, but if the guru's not accessible, that's a factor. I like Giriraj, I think he's sincere. But sometimes I like somebody, but then I'll hear a story from one of the disciples that changes my mind too. And everybody really acts the best with me, including the Maharajas. So recently I met Guru Prasad Swami in New York, and I just said to him, I lived in Mexico for a year. It might be nice to go to Mexico. And he facilitated the whole thing. And I'm not pushing too much traveling now, but that was really a great trip, and they do want me to return and even give some classes at the university, and I spoke of violence and death.
Mm.